This episode covers different types of statements in Python. A statement is just anything in Python. For example, loops are statements, but they are covered in a separate video. And this episode will only focus on two types of statements: if statements and functions. There is only a few more statements after this, and they will be covered in the next video. Starting with if statements. They are used to check if a variable is equal to something. On the first line, we have a variable called score, with an integer value that is 0. On the next line, we write if. Then the condition. This condition has to be true for the code in the if statement to run. Remember that only 1 equals is used to assign something, and 2 equals is used to check something. For example, we have used 1 equals to assign 0 to score. And we have used 2 equals to check if score is equal to 5. On the last line, we have the code for the if statement. This code will only run if the condition in the if statement is true. Remember to indent the code for the if statement. As you can see, when score is equal to 5, something is printed. However, if we want to print something when score is not 5, then we can use the else statement. Write else, then a colon. It also should not be indented. On the next line, write the code for the else statement. This code should be indented. So, when the condition is true, the code in the if statement runs, and when the condition is not true, the code in the else statement runs. In this case, score is 0, and the condition is checking if score is equal to 5. So the condition is not true, and the code in the else statement will run. Let's try it out. As explained, when score is not 5, the code in the else statement runs. And when score is 5, the condition is true, and the code in the if statement runs. Let's move on to functions. A function is a really useful way of calling and storing a bit of code. For example, this is a really simple function that prints hello. To write a function, write def. Then write the name of your function. The name can be anything, but cannot have spaces. This is like naming a variable. In this case, I have used the name my function. After the function name, put an open and closed circle bracket. Then a colon at the end. Then on the next line, write the code for your function. It should be indented. When we run the code, nothing is happening. This is because we have to call the function. To call a function, type the function's name, then open and closed brackets. As shown, the function is now being called. Remember, the function can only be called after the function itself. As shown, calling a function before the function itself does not work and gives an error. Now, there is a way of passing variables into a function. These are called parameters. Parameters allow you to specifically enter a variable into a function. In this case, I have called my parameter p1. The function can then use this variable in its code. For example, I have simply used this variable by printing it out. Let's take a look at this. I am going to create a variable outside my function. Then, I am going to pass the variable to the function by typing it in the brackets when we call the function. Now, in the function, I am going to make a parameter called p1. this will have the value of the past variable. Now, when we run the program, our function is being called and our variable is being passed into the function, then printed out inside the function. We can do the same thing, but instead, we can directly pass our string into the function. Functions can also have multiple parameters. This is done by using a comma, then writing another parameter's name. I have added a second parameter called P2. In my function, I am first printing the first parameter, then printing the second parameter. Outside the function, I am creating two variables. The first variable is a string with a value of hello, and the second variable is a string with a value of bye. As shown, hello is being printed first, as it has been passed to the function first, so it's assigned to the parameter P1 which is being printed before P2. We can make a really cool calculator like this. I have changed the first variable to 1 and the second variable to 5. Then, I have changed the function's code to only print out the first parameter plus the second parameter. As shown, this function adds together to numbers that we give it. And again, we can just directly pass our values into the function. Using return in functions. This is the last topic that you need to know on functions. First, let's rename our function so it matches the task it's doing. The return keyword in a function can be used to return back a variable. It is basically the opposite of parameters, as parameters pass variables into a function. First, let's put the answer into a variable. Then put return, then write the variable that you want to return back. In this case, I will return back the answer from our calculation. To receive the variable returned from a function, simply write a new variable name and set it equal to where you call the function. Now, this new variable will hold the value of what we returned in the function. In this case, the function returns the answer. So the variable myAnswer holds the value of the answer. And that's it for if statements and functions. There is still a few more statements left to cover. So see you in the next video.